What I want to do is, I want to talk about how do you maximize your current sales machine, or if you want to look into a business, how do you get more revenue? How do you do that faster? Most companies I meet, they always have ideas and then it takes them 2-3 months to get going. And they're thinking about it and they're talking about it and then they say, Michael, it's not moving. I don't have meetings. I'm stuck in my sales process. And then I get in and then I tell them this story. So what I do is 2 things. One hand, I build sales machines. Things like how do you optimize your pricing? How do you look at your sales stack? How do you hire people? What do you pay them from commission? How do you make them move faster? And the other side is selling software companies. And they go hand in hand, because if I change your revenue model and I move it towards a recurrent model, think SaaS, your equity value will go up like a rocket. So they really go together. So over the last years, I've seen so many sales guys. And I always see something back. Always they're facing very similar problems. So what I'm going to take now is a classic vice president of sales view on the sales life. The first thing is, every year you get an increase with 20%. I know a lot of you are startups, so you double and triple, but most companies do 20%, right? Second, what you have is inconsistent stories. Everybody tells a different story. Even with founders, if I go into a meeting room or an exec room and ask, what's your value prop and how do you pitch and what do you say? They all say something differently. Can you imagine your sales team saying different things? And what's the problem with that? It gives margin erosion, because if a value prop changes, your price, your value changes. So you need to make sure that's right. Second thing that happens is incredible overhead on systems. I mean, I spent days, months, years in CRMs, and then correcting my sales guy's CRM, and then correcting their mothers that filled it in. It's a mess. So a lot of CRM systems don't work for you. You work for the system. That is wrong. So we need to change that. Not only that, and I'll tell you what's actually missing and how to get there. Third thing is no motivation, no inspiration. I see a lot of sales guys that are really, I mean, if you tell the same story for 6 months, go to the same customers, you kind of know what you're doing, so you're running an automatic pilot. So you need to find a way to consciously break that pattern. And then the last one is, and this is a magical one, if you ever go to an executive boardroom or something, they say, Michael, our customers don't have a sense of urgency. My sales team, they don't have a sense of urgency. It's a magical word, it's a magical sentence. I use it when you shouldn't use it to wake up everybody. Guys, we need a sense of urgency. But I'm going to show you exactly how to do that and how to get there, right? So I've been looking at this picture and I thought, well, it kind of, from a distance, looks like me, happy from the outside of it. But when I was a sales guy, when I was running around, I looked very differently. Deep inside my mind, I had a different picture. And I looked for a while and I found this picture. This picture. So that was my insight. You know what this is, my dear friends? This is the lake of rejection. Every day you get no. Every day, every minute, every hour, every day you get no. So you need to find a way to get around it. You need to find a way to swim. And if you swim a lot, you come to me, I'll push you back in, because that's what it is. You need to find ways to go faster. So to understand how to do it, we need to look at sales. What is sales? Everybody knows marketing, and marketing generates leads. It goes to sales, but there is a third piece. Once you've sold it, anybody who has an idea, come on. Harder? No, it's customer success, actually. So customer success, both of them give leads towards sales. By the way, never pay customer success on a target, because then you breach the trust. Because if this guy or girl has to sell, they will have to learn to say no. You don't want that. You want them to help customers. That's their only goal, right? So where does growth hacking fit in? Well, I do a lot of speeches on growth hack events. I know a lot of growth hackers, and I always say the same thing. I say, guys, it's all fun and games what you do, but somebody at a certain stage will call you, and then you need to say something, right? So growth hacking for me is the new way of business development, data-driven, very fast, a lot of experiments, and then move it up a few scales. So what is sales? Sales needs to do 2 things. One, they need to build a relationship. Relation can be a social thing. You can do that via chatbots. You can do that via a lot of online tools. But fundamentally, it needs to be a relationship. Physical relationship is actually better. If I meet somebody and they get to know me and I phone them up, it's going to be hard to say no. I have a lot of sales guys say, yeah, it's a difficult discussion. Shall I send them an email? No, you phone them. Because if I send you an email, it's impersonal, and I can say no, I don't feel guilty. If I have to say it on the phone, a lot of people are conflict avoiders. They will say yes, right? So that's the first thing. You need to build a relationship. Second thing, there is a process. Whatever your sales guys are telling you, there is a process. There are several steps you need to go through. And what I do is I check how fast are people moving, where are they stuck, how can we move it forward. For instance, if you lose some deals in the beginning, you know your value pitch sucks. So let's look at that sales cycle. Classic lead, inquiry, marketing qualified, sales qualified. You get into the qualification game, and then you have all the stages, and at the end you have the closed one. Typically, if things go wrong here, you have a bad value pitch. If things go wrong at the proposal, you have a bad pricing. Probably you're too high, but sometimes I see companies that have a too low price. That's also possible. So this would be the stuff you fill into CRM. But what's the problem with this thing? This thing is you. And what are you selling to? It's buyers. So this only has sellers' data. That is not right, because I can invent whatever I want. So what you really want is the other side. So how can you get that? Well, in order to understand how to get that data, you need to look in how people buy. And people buy via journey. You've probably heard today a lot about customer journeys, but I'm just going to give you one pragmatic example. Today is a good day. I just came from the notary, signed the piece of paper to buy a piece of land. But it was the second time I had to go because the first time I forgot. Because why? I have a company agenda called Chaomatic, and my wife has the agenda for the family. They're not synchronized, so I completely forgot to show up. So you can imagine all the discussions we had of it. So that means I am aware of a big, massive problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Peter, and that's Peter. I'm going to go to Peter and ask Peter, how do you solve this? So he's going to tell me, well, go online, check Google, try a tool. So I'm going to educate myself. I'm going to try a tool. I'm going to select one. And everybody's like, yeah, sure. That's what you put in CRM. It's not right. Because imagine I don't like the tool. So I'm going to go back here. I'm going to ask Yannick. And Yannick, I think, this guy is Groter. He has no clue. I'm going to talk to somebody else. And then else, and I'm going to check, and I'm going to try some other tool. So this kind of goes back and forth all the way up there. Eventually, I will decide something, and I will integrate it into my system. And that is very hard to capture in any system. So this being the most important slide of today, there is one key thing you need to know. What is this? Come on, guys. I'll tell you. It's a big fat line. But what does that line say? That line says something really important, what most companies do wrong. Most companies try to sell, always be closing, try to sell through the whole chain. It's not working, because if you don't know me, this guy doesn't know me, if I would walk up to him and say, hi, I'm Michael, I'm 10K for a day, he's going to go back and say, I don't trust you, I don't know you, I have no clue who you are. And that is exactly what most companies do. They do that in websites, they do that in the way they sales approach, the way they do newsletters, the way they sell. Don't do that. Here, you cannot sell. You educate, you tell people about things and give value. Here, you sell. You know people are ready to buy. Hey, Michael, can we have a chat? Michael, how much would it cost? Those are buying signals. Then you sell, then you close. But never, ever, ever try to close here. So, if we say we understand what sales is, then we know the buying cycle, and we say, okay, so Michael, I have a business, I understand all the stuff you're saying, and it just doesn't move. Well, it doesn't move because probably you don't have focus. So what most companies do, they do this. So they grow organically, and they say, well, I'm targeting at insurance, I'm at fast-moving consumer goods, and they kind of go on all the way, which basically is the entire global population they're trying to target. Well, it's not going to work. But why do they do it? Because they need cash, because some of them just don't know where to go, and it's just hard to say no. But it's not working, my friends. You need to fix this. If you fix your focus, you will fix your revenue, and you will go much faster. But is it only focus? Nah, focus is not enough. I can describe the top of the mountain in every angle I want, but I still need to get up the mountain. So I still need to take those steps. And how do you get up the mountain is by taking small steps, but many, and you do not stop by stepping. So what do you need? You need production. You need to make things. You need to show things. You need to go outside. You need to push. Most companies I meet, they tell me, Michael, we have a big issue, sales is not going well, and then I ask them, how many meetings do you have a week? And then they go like, one. Well, what do you think is going to happen, right? You need to get outside. And the second thing is speed. I just talked to a company this morning on the phone. They spent 3 months making a beautiful website, beautifully designed. In that time, competition came up, made a very ugly website with lots of text, but they took half of the market. So speed is important, not perfection, speed. So, how do you do that? If you start thinking about it, then you realize the top of the mountain is my focus, that's my macro, I keep an eye on that, and then I start moving every day to get to the top of the mountain. That's where I can change, that's where I can alter my course. That's the micro, that's production and speed. So how do we do it? Well, why don't we take several components together and put them into a model? One, marketing, all the campaign logic, the segmentation you've heard today. Second, Scrum methodology. Scrum methodology says in 2 weeks you need to build something that works. Why didn't we ever do that in sales? I tell you now, 2 weeks is not going to work, because if I phone Peter, he's not phoning back, I have a problem. You'll need 6 weeks. And I've tested it with 20 companies, 6 weeks works. By the way, no sales can concentrate longer than 6 weeks on one project. Third thing is sales. You also need the skills. Sales, closing techniques, all of that. So how do we do it? What's the idea behind? I presented this, by the way, a few weeks ago in front of a room full of CMOs, and I asked them, how much would this cost if I would say I do a campaign? And they go like 20K, 30K, 50K. Well, I tell you, this thing, what I'm going to show you, is maybe 200 euro. Because you don't know first where you want to go. So what you do is you take a segment of 50 to 100 names. I give you a good example. I have a company that I work with called Zensor. They are in the windmill turbine business, and in the Benelux, there are 85 decision makers to buy or invest in one of these things. 85 is a good number. And why so small? Because you don't know if your value pitch is correct. And two, I want you to personalize. Marketing change from one to many to one to one. The more personalized you can be, the better it's going to be. So what you do is, you collect the list. I'm going to give you some examples. You're going to collect the list. You're going to make a highly targeted value pitch for these guys. And then you're going to launch it. A few weeks later, you move to the next one and to the next one. And where do you put the big bucks? You put the big bucks here. You don't put the big bucks there because you don't know if this is going to work. That's what I see most companies doing. They're thinking in too big scale, and that makes them slow. Think very small, go fast, iterate. If things go wrong, doesn't matter. Just keep going, iterate. Because what's the goal? Start with segment 1, you grow that segment. So the 85 windmill guys, you would actually take Europe as the next one. Or you could say, I stay in Flanders, I go to Wallonia. I stay in Belgium, I go to... Can be industries, can be products, can be titles, it doesn't matter. But eventually, what you do is, you go for world domination. Pick a niche, scale like crazy. And this is what the guys like Chaomatic and these companies are doing, and this is why they are growing tremendously fast. This is what a lot of SaaS companies are doing. They have built their model around it, but even if you're non-SaaS, you can apply the model and it's going to work for you. So, how does it work? Segment, speak their language. And I'm going to show you some examples of that, because I'm pretty sure if I open any of your websites, what are you going to do? First slide, you're going to talk about you. We're great, we're the best. This is what we do. Next thing you're going to do, these are all the features we have. And then eventually, if I go down the whole slide, you might talk about a customer reference. It doesn't work like that anymore, friends. What do people care about? It's them. So talk about them and that stuff. When I do these workshops, people are just staring at me and say, oh, yeah, but how do I do it? Show a picture of what they do. It's the most simple thing. Show a picture then of what their problem is. And then eventually you're going to say, this is why I do this. And they will trust you. And that way you get credibility, and that's the way they buy. And you will go much faster than any of your competitors, because what your competitors will do is show pictures of them. A few days ago, I was in a session. First thing the guy says, hi, hey, I'm this guy. We have a new logo. Let me tell you about our logo. Who cares? Nobody cares. You care, but not your potential customers. So let me give you an example of a sales sprint. This is a company called Humblet.io. They're based in Leuven. They make data visualization. This is their brand site called Let's Make Sense of Your Data, very generic. And you have to remember, in January, so I don't want to give examples of Airbnb and Uber because they're anomalies. Most companies are like this. They had 10 customers in January, my friends. 10, right? So they asked me, said, how can we move faster? So I looked into their customer base because you don't need to invent stuff. And I said, how many, what do they do? I said, 7 of our 10 customers use Team Leader. Oh, that's a pattern. So why do they use Team Leader? Because they actually use our visualization of data as a dashboard. I said, why don't we go for that? So what they did was, this was their website. You've seen very blue. This is the website of Team Leader. People buy Team Leader understand this kind of logic. So they created a new landing page, Humblet, Team Leader, completely talking Team Leader language. Very simple, very easy, because don't forget, there are only 2 pitches in life as a sales. It's either revenue up or cost down. All the rest is completely irrelevant. So you always have that. Second thing you need to know, if I'm a CEO and I have 100,000 euro to spend, what will I choose? Revenue up, that's 1, or cost reduction? You choose. Hands for 1, revenue up. Hands for 2? Number 2 is wrong. They will always choose revenue because they always think they can control cost, which is not the case, but they think they can. So if I can get more money, I'll spend money to make money. Always the same thing. So play on that card. So they actually built a landing page. They actually tried a separate pricing to see if it's going to work. And when you click on it, so remember 10 customers, 2 references. When you click on it, you could fill it in, create an account, and 4 more references. When you look at this, you think, well, pretty well, and I see people. Don't forget, people buy from people. People trust people. So put a lot of people in your sites. And then you say, but I don't have references, or I'm just starting, or I don't know anything of this market. Well, then I'll show you a little trick. Let's read what these people are saying. I love the Humblet Cloud Analytics platform. She doesn't say anything. She's not using it. And then, what an awesome product. Honored to see a demo. For God's sake, it's a demo. And then the last guy, guess, he says, please take my money. And you know what? People don't read that. They just look at the pictures and say, ooh, people, it's being used. Use that. Don't be afraid. So we did a lot of analytics on this page. Of course, they're an analytical company. So what happened? They did a 2-week setup and then a 4-week rollout. First time you do it, it's a 2-week setup. Second time you do it, because what takes time is building the list. It's not making the landing page. You can do that in a day or 2. So building the list and the message and the email and all of that was difficult. But after a while, now they are at our 10th sprint. They take 1 day to set this up. 1 day. That's an enormous cost reduction and goes very fast. And then you need about 4 weeks to mail them. You have a sequence 2-3 mails. Then you phone them up. What's the result? They sold 20 licenses. In 6 weeks, they had 15 signed up customers, some large ones. And interesting enough, if you go to the page, Humblet.io/teamleader, it still exists. And you know why it still exists? Because it was so niche that people who are looking for a solution in Team Leader and Dashboard, they always land on that page. Up to date, still today, they sell 2 to 3 licenses per week on this page. This page made them this year 85,000 euro recurring revenue for just 1 sprint. So they moved their whole system to sprinting. Some learnings, just so you know, don't use Twitter. Twitter doesn't work for sales for this type of business, and they focus a lot on AdWords. So let's have another one. Anybody an idea? I'm just showing a page. That's where you land. General page. What do they do? I mean, you can read it, but it doesn't say what they do. What do they do? I'll give you a hint. They sell sensors. Right? Smart guys. What do you see? Classic page. You see a blurry picture of a bridge. You see some very interesting words, infrastructure, analytics, sensor, and that's what most people do. And then they have, you should check the website, they have lots of stuff sitting below where you think, I don't really get it. And then they basically address oil and gas. So they say, depends on which industry you're, oil and gas, chemicals, basically the whole world. So I said, it's not going to work. Let's just pick one. And one was the wind turbine business. So what did we do? We changed it to this. A picture of wind turbines. And then we do the magical thing, what nobody says. You quantify the result. Everybody of you will have on their websites, we are the best, we are the fastest, we accelerate. You quantify the result. You start with the end. The end is 20% in this case. It's a big number. Is it fully right? Maybe not. That doesn't matter, because what you can say is up to 20%, right? So there are many tricks how to do it, but start with the number. I tell you what happened. They sent out 85 mails to these 85 people. 72 opened it. 25 replied. I've never seen that statistic. They replied. And they had about 15 meetings, and they made 8 quotes. 1 quote, 25K, my friends. So statistically, if you make 8 quotes, you divide it by 3, and you get a result. So let's say they'll do 3 deals in 6 weeks of this, by just talking the language of your customer and stop talking about yourself. As simple as that. Another thing they did is, that's the first part, then you see that. What you see is you say, this is you, this is what you want, and these are your problems. I don't know if you see it well, you know, when this, so what they do is they put sensors on these little screws. If you don't screw one enough, these things basically start vibrating and they fall. That's their fear, because it's 25 million for one of these things. So we found a picture of their biggest fear. It's like, you see these cracks? Basically showing them visually, this is what could happen. Is that photoshopped? Maybe a little. You see, but basically we tell the challenges with examples being visual. So one of the things you should do is, when I enter a sales meeting, instead of, the way to be really relevant is to tell their problem, but you can't say you have a problem because people don't like it. What you say is, I just came from a customer 2 weeks ago, and you know what their problems were? 1, 2, 3. And these guys will get straight away that you understand their own problem, and they'll pick it in, and you'll have a whole different conversation. So, next one, just giving you some ideas here. Online werkrooster, they had a website, very classic one. We did some changes. One of the things that you need to know, you have 3 seconds when people watch your website. Put social proof in there from the first view. People's faces, logos, it doesn't matter. This website changed from 3 conversions a week to 3 to 4 a day, just by adding that. The other thing they did magically, and I've never seen anybody doing that, and that's really, really a golden tip, is at a certain stage in your story, you need to say something about yourself, right? So you need to say, I'm doing this, and these are the features. And there's nothing as boring as talking about, yes, we support Android, and just boring. But you can do it very differently. So what these guys did is they basically set their features, altijd beschikbaar, always available for the non-Dutch speaking. And then they have a picture of a guy with a title, and he says something. So this, it's like your features being explained by your customers. It's magical. Do these texts match? Not always. Does it matter? No, nobody watches it, nobody reads it. You are the only ones really, really reading every letter, and it takes you months to get through, right? But it is relevant, right? Just, I'm not cheating here, right? So, what will it do? It will do 3 things. Because in 6 weeks' time, you will be highly focused, you will have way better qualified leads, your sales process is just going to go much faster because you only talk their language, and your close rates are going up. Not only that, you will add, because you start with 1, you do the next one, you'll keep an enormous momentum, and you'll take an enormous amount of speed, solving almost all 4 problems that I explained in the first slide. So, fix your focus, fix your revenue. Now, you might have guessed, as a sales guy, it's not lying, but it's kind of a different truth. So I kind of said something in the beginning which is not entirely correct. It's not a lake, it's actually a sea. It's a sea of rejection. But if you use just one of these tips, just one, you will be riding that wave, and you will make more money. So, I promise to be short. If you want more information, 2 things. I have a YouTube channel. I do a lot of thought leadership. I started a journey 6 months ago. You can follow it completely, where you see me explaining stuff, and I try to really apply this education awareness to get actually business that way in a very different way. And I tell you, the last 6 months, I haven't done 1 closing call, 1 closing discussion. It just came. Second thing, I get a lot of questions. I do a sales sprint bootcamp, 1 day, only this. Get ready, start running, and going. So before I end, I just want to tell you one more thing. May the sales be with you.